Hello, it's me. A little snippet story from my life. Let's go with childbirth, huh? Because I'm sure my son wants me to tell this story. Um, so I had my son 3 weeks before my 18th birthday, and I gave birth in Brazil. And I forgot my headphones. I am getting worse and worse at this. I should be getting better and better. Nope, not me. So let's adjust this. Okay, yay. Um, so anyways, hey, over the years, me sidetrack a little. Over the years, I've heard people talk about like you're not a real parent if you didn't have a real mother, if you didn't have natural childbirth, if you had a C-section, it's not good enough. And I'm like, what? Like people adopt, like what's the criteria for a man to be a real father if that's the criteria for women? I don't think this is a standardized thing. I just think this is idiots on social media. But anyways, so I'm going to talk about my awesome childbirth story. So at the time that I gave birth to my son, I spoke fluent Portuguese. I was on plenty often mistaken as a Brazilian because my accent was passable as a southerner, not anywhere from Brazil, but specifically the south, where the accent sounds a little more gringa. Anyways, so um yeah, I I my pregnancy is I think a whole other story, but I went into labor and I woke up and went to the bathroom and I went back to bed. And shortly thereafter, I had to go to the bathroom again. And this time, as I was going to the bathroom, there was like water running down my leg and there was water on the bed. And I was like, did I pee myself? Yeah, no, my waters broke. Yeah, so that's kind of how I knew. And then from that point on, I was in labor. So wow, this feels like a whole lot of TMI even for me. I was in labor. It wasn't that horrible, wasn't that intense at first. I walked around, I was doing breathing exercises, and I mean, I was 17, just shy of 18, and yeah, so I had been doing different workouts and practicing Lamaze breathing throughout my pregnancy, so I felt like fairly well prepared. I had been watching childbirthing videos since I. Holy cow, only that was so loud. I don't know if you heard that, but man, she just farted. Okay. All right, back to story time. Oh, before you forget, like, subscribe, share, comment, whatever. Okay, so empty space and I don't know how to edit. That's exciting. Yeah, so I had done all the Lamaze stuff and done like workout shit, and I'd watched a million videos since I was very, very little, like 3, 4 years old, of our friend being born to that horrible music. And yeah, so I had a really good idea on childbirth and all that. So, anyways, I was in labor. We finally went to the hospital, and my son's father was there. Now, at this point, I was already planning on leaving the cult. My son's dad was not prepared to leave the cult, so we were not together. But he was there at the hospital for the birth, but I did not want him in the room with me while I had the child. I did have a close friend of my mom's present. They were like sisters within the cult. Um, my mom had passed away the year prior. And so I felt like I was a representative of my mom. And while everyone still knew I was leaving the cult, I didn't want to be like a total mega bitch while I was in labor. So I did try to behave myself. Jesus, girl. I don't know what she's been eating today. So anyways, yeah, so I'm in labor and I'm in the hospital. I'm trying to do the breathing things. And there was this exercise we do where you'd rotate the hips and, stand on all fours, lift a leg. I don't know. There was some weird fucking shit. And I came to the conclusion that all that stuff is distraction technique. because it did nothing to alleviate the pain, like literally zero, nothing at all. And I have heard that when you're going through something traumatic, your brain might, like, doesn't access knowledge the way it normally would. And in my situation, I forgot how to speak Portuguese. Every time I attempted, it came out in English. And so I was reliant on this family friend as a translator. So I would ask her, like, isn't there something they can give me for the pain? I had absolutely no plan of having a completely natural childbirth. It was very common in the cult. I absolutely wanted no part of that. And I made that very clear, I thought. But yeah, whenever I was like, can't they give me something? This hurts like a lot. And she would just be like, oh, honey, what's wrong? Let's pray. That was not, no. Um, Not only did those exercises do nothing for the pain, prayer didn't either. It hurt. It hurt a lot. Yeah. So I did have a pretty short labor, which I am lucky on that. I had about 6 hours of like regular labor, slowly crescendoing into about 2 hours of hard, intense labor. And there was no birthing plan in place. And once they wheeled me into the operating room or delivery room or whatever, yeah, they moved me in and they said I was ready. The 10 centimeters dilated, and they injected a little bit of numbing agent in my private region, and I could feel the snip. It wasn't painful, but I could feel it and hear it. And then they told me to push. And it didn't take very long. My son was born. Um, it hurt. It hurt a lot. Yes, absolutely would not recommend 100% natural. I mean, it's doable, but yeah, I was not a fan. Um, it honestly terrified me about having children in the future. After delivery, when they handed me my son for a minute, I made a point of studying his face. I was so worried that he would get stolen away. Um, you hear stories of children being swapped in hospitals and people swapping out, and you get someone, I don't know. I was just, for some reason, that was a big paranoia of mine. I don't think it was entirely unfounded. But I studied his face, and he had this big, big dimple in his chin that he got from his father. And so I was like, okay, he's got blue eyes like me. He's got this dimple in the chin. He's got this wrinkly neck. He's got, like, memorize the face so that they don't accidentally give me back the wrong baby. I went into the recovery room after. I shared the room with 3 other women, and everyone else had girls in that room. There was an empty bed at the time. I was one of the beds by the door, and then there was 2 other women on the other side. And then the empty bed, they brought in a woman who was very, very pregnant, and she was deaf. And no one in that wing of the hospital, at least, could communicate with her. Lady, settle down. Come here. Dogs. Let me. Okay, now that the doggy drama has momentarily subsided, now only's playing with something. Anyway, so I was in the, after birth recovery room, and they brought my son to me there, and it was him. Had the same little dimple on his chin. And this deaf woman was brought in labor, and no one could communicate with her. And it was actually just before they had brought my son to me, actually. And so I was waiting for them to return him. And I ended up translating. I didn't know a whole lot of sign language, but I knew the alphabet. And so I was signing in sign language, spelling words in Portuguese to communicate on her behalf. It's the most difficult translation I've ever done in my life. And literally just a half hour or so before, I had completely forgotten how to speak Portuguese. And now I was spelling it in another foreign language. I don't know. I was very disappointed that I had lost my ability to communicate during my labor. But anyways, I was able to help her. And so that was great. And then Eventually, she was taken to deliver her child, and another woman that I had been in the labor room with came with her child. So the other three women all had baby girls, and mine was the only boy. And we had a little crib right next to the bed. And I remember looking at him, and he looked like an old man turtle alien. And um, yeah, I was always told that once you look into your beautiful baby's eyes and, you'll realize it was all worth it. No, that realization did not come. Definitely not immediately. However, that evening, they turned off the room light, but they left the overhead lights on above our beds. And I cannot sleep with lights on. I actually tend to sleep with my eyes partially open. I've been told it's very creepy, and people often think I'm staring at them. I'm not. I sleep with my eyes partially open. And so any bit of light or flashing lights or a little tiny, it'll seep into my eyesight and I will see it and it will wake me up. So I need the room dark. So I asked the nurse if they could turn off how do I turn off the light over my bed? And she told me that they do not turn those off because they need the mothers to sleep lightly in the event that someone were to slip into the room that was not belonging there in order to steal their babies. Um, yeah, so I guess my terror of someone stealing my child was not entirely unfounded. After that, my son did not go back in his crib. He slept in the bed with me after that moment. And the other women, oh so kind to the young mother that I was, they were telling me how my child would be the first. They were so lucky that my child was in the room because it meant their children were safe, because my son was a white, light skinned, blue eyed, light hair boy, and boys and light skin and blue eyes are more desirable, and their babies would, being girls and darker skinned, were less likely to be stolen. So yeah, I didn't feel very safe there with my son. My son did have a touch of jaundice, as did two other children, baby girls that were in that room. One had to be in a little crib with a light over her constantly. The mother couldn't hold the baby except to nurse her. She had to change her and comfort her while she was still inside this little crib thing with the light, to help with her jaundice. Another baby was also in a similar crib. That one wasn't as bad, so she was able to hold her more, but still. So those two babies cried quite a bit because they weren't being held a lot. And when the doctor came to look at my son the next day, all the women had delivered children at that hospital before, because they all seemed to know all the pediatricians. And when they heard who was on, working that day, they were like, "Oh, you're going to be stuck here for at least like 3-4 days. She never lets anyone go home early." And when she came and inspected my son, he did have a touch of jaundice, and but she said that I could go home. So I was in the hospital for a total of 24 hours from when I was admitted in labor to when I was released and sent home with my son. And they were very, very jealous of it. And I think that might have been the first time I really realized about what privilege might be. And I was okay with taking that privilege because I did not want my son to be stolen from me. And yeah, I was okay with that. So yeah, that was, recovery was not fun. We didn't really believe in pain management. However, I guess for uh, delivery, they made a slight exception. However, they got like the absolute cheapest version of the pain meds that they could, which was this gross yellow oil like looking liquid you were supposed to mix into this 8-ounce glass of water. So they couldn't just get a couple of pills. And you were supposed to put like a certain amount and then fill the glass with water. And I was like, that shit was the nastiest, most bitter taste ever. So I just put like a little bit of water and just took it like a shot, and it helped. It wasn't great, but it helped. And there were, yeah, pain management is very important. Childbirth hurts. It really does. So, Yeah, I've only done it the once. I am old enough that I don't plan on ever doing that again. Um, but yeah, that is my story of giving birth in a foreign country and forgetting how to speak the language and being told that my son could be stolen from me in the night. So luckily he wasn't. And that is my childbirth story. And now I'm going to just ramble about other random things that maybe I should talk about in the future. But there we go. Childbirth overseas. My personal experience. I mean, I did get my son, he is healthy. But beyond that, yeah, I think I got lucky, is what I think. Anyways, I will call this a video, and until next time, ciao.